Ooh, probably should fix all this, because all of you just noticed something about me. Whether it was good, bad, or just plain confused, you noticed something. That's human. We're wired to make snap judgments. According to the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity, dyslexia affects 20% of the population. I'm part of that 20%. It's a disability that only recently started to be recognized, and even now is often misunderstood. Growing up, I constantly heard things like, dyslexics struggle with just reading and writing, or does that M look like a W? That E look like a 3? But dyslexia is more than that. It affects reading, writing, memory, comprehension, focus, and so much more. For most of my life, it made me feel like I didn't belong, like I was broken. Today, I want to walk you through these steps I took to go from feeling like an outcast to owning my difference. As a kid, I struggled with reading, silently and out loud. I'd reread a single page 3 times and still not remember what it said. I was terrified of being called on in class, but then I started to understand how I learn. During high school, I realized I wasn't broken, I was just wired differently. I'm a multi-sensory learner. I absorb information when I combine sounds, visuals, and movement. And when that clicked, so did everything else. I began to see stories not in a straight line, but as a web of shapes, connections, and visuals. For me, it wasn't going from point A to point B. It was point A to D to B, back to C, then back to A again. And that became my strength. At 13, I started my first lawn care business. Classic Midwest lawn mowing. I hated it. It was hot, it was sweaty, it was terribly gross, but it made me money. At 15, I started an esports organization with friends from around the world, Toronto, Glasgow, Miami. At its peak, we managed 40 content creators, 6 competitive teams, a staff, and sponsors. Eventually collapsed, but in the process, I learned how to edit video, design graphics, and market online. That led to a design company, which at 18 transitioned to a marketing agency, where I got to work with wonderful companies from around the world. All of this happened because I started seeing the world my way, not in a sad, dreary, depressing world, but a happy, hopeful, joyful one. I leaned into my dyslexia, not away from it. I saw what others don't, but recognizing your differences is only step 1, because everyone has a process. Mine just happens to look, in all respects, absolutely insane. Here is how I tend to write an essay. I start with the ending, then I take a break. Then I write the first main point, then a break. Then I write the intro, take a break. Then I scroll through TikTok. Then I write something that doesn't fully make sense for the essay. But then I get inspired. I write point 3, you get that feeling. Then I take a break. Then I forget that I have the assignment and realize it about 2 weeks before it's due. And then I find point 2 and write it, read it back, hate it, fix it, send it to friends, and it's terrible. But it's chaotic, it's nonlinear, it makes no sense. But it's mine. It's my flow. Your process might be whiteboards filled on a sticky note, like sticky notes just full of whiteboards. Maybe it's drawing. Maybe it's talking your ideas out loud. The point is, find your process and own it. Don't compare your flow to someone else's, because when you know how you work, you win. Dyslexia didn't hurtle me into the ground, it propelled me forward into a world I would never expect. To me, dyslexia is a superpower. There are many successful entrepreneurs who are diagnosed with dyslexia and other learning disabilities. For example, Richard Branson. He has dyslexia. He struggled in school, dropped out at 16, and built the Virgin Empire, which includes Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Galactic, Virgin Hotels, Virgin Express, Virgin Airlines, Virgin Cars, Virgin Drinks, Virgin Voyages, and I think you get the point. David Neeleman, founder of JetBlue, he once said he couldn't even write a memo without help. But his dyslexia helped him imagine everything in a totally different way. Even Steve Jobs, though he was never officially diagnosed, he talked about the differences he saw visually and things out of sequence, which sounds quite familiar. These people didn't succeed in spite of their disabilities, they succeeded because of it. See, disabilities force you to adapt, to look at everything from a different angle. It gives you a mental toolkit unachievable through pure practice. I'm not saying it's easy because honestly, it was the hardest journey I ever had to overcome. But when I prevailed, I was a completely different person. We live in a world that constantly tells us to fit in, to meet some imaginary standard. But some of the most impactful people in history didn't fit that mold. They broke it. So don't hide your differences, harness it. Use it to see what others miss, to innovate, to tell new stories. That's how you turn your weakness into a weapon. Because we all have something different inside of us, something weird, something brilliant, something that makes us stand out. Let it out. That's where your superpower lives.